LinkedIn News.
How do you want to feel when you're at home?
Hey everyone, from LinkedIn News, this is In the Arena, a podcast exploring human potential. I'm Leah Smart, and every week you'll find me right here in conversation with bright minds and brave hearts, learning how we can improve our lives and our world by transforming ourselves. So one of my biggest epiphanies last year was the importance of the physical environment that we're in, that place that we call home. I had left my apartment in New York and gone across the country to try my hand at nomading. And what I realized, because it didn't work out very well, was I much prefer having one solid place I call home and then traveling from there if I want to. So when I got back and started thinking about this, I went down a rabbit hole. And of course, I figured out that there are many studies that link the space that we spend most of our time to our well-being, which probably isn't shocking, but it's something I don't think we pay a lot of attention to. Now, COVID has changed a lot of people's definitions of home. So whether you stayed put or moved around, something probably shifted about the space you're in. And with the constraints we all have, whether they be space, time, or money, I wondered how each of us could get intentional about where we live so it's authentic to us without having to change everything up, break the bank, or spend months thinking about it. So I found Ted Vatican and Angie Myung. They're a married couple, they live in Los Angeles, and they started a company called Poketo, focused on everyday design. And when they first started the company in 2003, they were working and living in a tiny studio apartment. So they've designed their life in all sorts of spaces.
Home is always a place of respite. You come home and you feel peaceful and you feel calm and it's inviting and so on and so forth. Now I think that we have that, but it hasn't always been that way.
Okay, so Poketo has a few storefronts, but they also have this really cool online store that's all about making art and design accessible to everybody, every day. So when you go to their website, you get hit with these bright colors and these simple but really bold shapes. And Angie and Ted have written a book called Creative Spaces that explores the many ways in which we can get creative in our spaces. In a few seconds, you're going to hear us talk about the connection between you and the space you call home, how it's all really a work in progress, and also what you can do right now to make your space something that reflects both who you are today and hints at who you're becoming. But first, I really wanted to get their opinion on why we should even care about this topic. How do you think that the everyday person should be thinking about their physical environment?
I think what home means to me or where I find joy is we usually have things that really sort of resonate with us or that have a personal connection to us. I don't think, having your space be like a cookie cutter image of a design catalog is anything inspiring to me, right? What's inspiring to me and what we have in our home are connections to our friends, connections to our family, things that just bring us joy. So as an example, that might be an artwork that I may have bought from a friend that I can have focused front and center in the living room. Or, when we travel, I'll usually collect rocks from different places that we travel, rocks that just sort of like speak to me in some way when we're there. And it's also sort of a reminder of that place. And to me, home is that. It's kind of feeling at peace, it's feeling love, it's feeling joy, and you sort of see this through the objects and the different things that you sort of fill your home with.
I love the rock collection. In the last 2 years, so many people have uprooted themselves, gone to multiple places, and no longer have one place they call home. And so I love this idea of resonance with the many places we may call home now, because we've had such an array of experience, many of us, over the last 2 years during the height of COVID.
Absolutely. And same with us, this idea of home being anywhere, I totally agree with you there. Like a creative space is not just your living space or not just your office space, but it's like really sort of a state of being in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah.
And really that, like you're saying, like that you're able to sort of travel with that. And I think that's the coolest part of where now with sort of remote work or work from home, you are able to experience kind of different creative spaces wherever you are.
Also being in nature, I think that's been a huge gift, So whenever we go camping or backpacking, we always realize, oh my God, there's only few things I need to live, Your tent becomes a really beautiful home in the nature.
Yeah, it's interesting. I only really realized the true importance of physical space last year when I uprooted my physical space and I gave up my apartment in New York and went across the country to Oregon. And I was living in a space which was beautiful, but it wasn't mine. And it didn't really hit me for about 6 weeks that, wait, this isn't my space. And I can't connect fully to it in that way. I kept saying to my friends, I want to be in a place where I have a key and I turn the lock and everything inside is mine and I've done it on purpose, despite how beautiful this space is. And so it made me think about the fact that, perhaps many people either don't have the mental space or the privilege to really sit down and think about their space. Why does it matter? When you all are thinking about accessible everyday design, why does it matter for us to care about this no matter the resources we have?
Because I think that whichever space you're in, whether it's your office space or studio or a home, I mean, for example, when I like to cook a lot, I love cooking, and I need to first clean the kitchen first. I need to wipe everything down. I need to organize everything, wash all the dishes before I can start to cook, because I think I need a really clean space. I need a really an empty space to start to even create. So I think having actually an organized space also gives you a peace of mind, in my opinion. So sometimes I would go to my friends' places and it's they're artists and everything's everywhere. It's just how do you live like this, But in their mind, organized chaos is what they feel comfortable with.
Right. They're I know exactly where that thing is. It's under the pile of stuff over here.
Exactly. Yeah.
How about you, Ted?
I think it's important to surround yourself with meaningful things, right? And your home should be that. It should be things that that sort of, remind you of love and sort of remind you of being joyful. And that's how we design our own home, right? So we try to fill it with things from our friends or people that we know or objects that mean something. That's it for us. It's our house, it's funny enough, the aesthetic of Poketo is very kind of colorful. It does have sort of a minimal quality to it, but it's very joyful. It's very fun, just kind of full of joy and whimsy. We are surrounded by that every day when we go to work, and we love it. But when we leave work and we come home, our home isn't actually like our workspace.
A giant
right?
Poketo.
Yeah, it's not a giant Poketo.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. That's the thing that we love about it, is that we can kind of have this experience of the color, that sort of inspiration that Poketo offers when we're in on the day-to-day. But then we can come home and have a totally different experience that we also enjoy, right? So it's almost a place to breathe. So we sort of are lucky to kind of have that respite in our home, and then, be able to go down to work and still be fully, stimulated with all the colors and the city and the downtown, which we also love. But it's nice to have both. Yeah. So, to me, it's it's not about just filling it with stuff, but it's about finding things that kind of
that are meaningful to you.
Yeah, finding things that are meaningful to you, and finding things that you want to make how you want your home to kind of make you feel, right?
Yeah, finding joy in the objects that you decide to bring in. So we are very intentional of buying things as well, because I don't really want to own a lot of things. Just running Poketo and making things and buying things for a living has really made me a very minimal person.
How interesting, right? That was the impact, is wow, I need less.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break. All right, so you've heard why it matters to care about your personal space. And you're probably already thinking about how you'd like your space to evolve, either a little bit or a lot. And it reminds me of this brainstorm session that I was in recently where the person leading it said to me, before you start talking about what we can and can't do, just tell me the list of things you want without limits. I loved that, and I think it applies here too. Sometimes we get so tied to being quote unquote realistic that we don't give ourselves the space to dream just a little bit beyond what we currently see. Okay, so go dream a bit, and we'll be back with how to get started. And we're back with Ted Vatican and Angie Myung on the questions to ask yourself to get more intentional and creative in your space. So what you were saying, and you alluded to this, Angie, when I think about your book, Creative Spaces, it felt like the people you featured had a lot of intentionality behind the design of their spaces. It was functional and it was intentional. And I'm wondering, as you think about people who might be asking themselves right now, what is my experience of my space? How am I experiencing it today? What's something that, someone who doesn't have a huge budget or maybe feels like their constraints are like, I don't have an eye for design, or I have roommates, or I live in a tiny studio in New York City and I can't, I'm deciding between putting my, my dishes or my towels in my kitchen cupboards. What would you tell them to do, or how would you tell them to think about their space?
Think about your space as a blank space, like a blank canvas, and start to write down or things that you definitely need to have. So you need a bed, you need possibly a sofa, you need few dishes at least. And then think about the things that you want to bring in to give you the joy or to give you the, a smile on your face. So that's actually that cuts down so much clutter. Even if you have a small space, you can fit everything that you need, and then a few things that you want in there, and then go from there.
For us over the years, when we first moved in, when Angie's was saying, it was sort of this blank canvas. And it really gave us the opportunity to really sort of explore how we want to design our home. And even over the years, it's changed. And I think that's the cool thing about designing a space or designing a home, designing an office. It's you shouldn't be afraid of change. Having it evolve constantly is okay. Having it change is okay. And just because you may have bought, whatever, this chair or a piece of decor doesn't mean that you can't replace it later, right? Or you can't switch it out. And that's the cool thing, is that the space itself, it's not one and done. It really should be something that's always evolving, right?
As you're evolving, your space also evolves.
Yeah.
You might be tired of this thing that you bought 10 years ago because you're not that person anymore, or that you're not into it as much anymore.
It's interesting, living in New York, moving is such a normal thing in New York. It's you're moving apartment to apartment to apartment at a given time. And I think I've lived in maybe 6 since I moved here. And one thing you get used to is you can't keep everything every time you move. And you don't realize that that's what's going to happen. And it actually, maybe in a similar way that you said, Angie, it's made me think God, I don't need nearly as much stuff as I thought I'd need. And I don't like clutter. I don't like having a lot, particularly because I know that there may be a point where it's going to shift because change happens. So I love the idea that you're talking about this sense of how things can shift, being okay with how they shift, and then getting better at deciding what actually matters to you in the space that you live in. The reason I think this conversation is important is because, they've done a ton of studies on well-being and its connection to the physical environment you're around, how it can raise or lower stress. And, there are all these things that I think we take for granted, and maybe also just don't feel like we have the mental space to consider when it comes to how our space impacts us, our minds, our well-being, our creativity, our joy, and, the kind of the fun that we have.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Leah. The best thing is waking up in the morning, making my cup of coffee, being able to just sit on the couch and just feel like you can breathe, right? To me, home should be that. It's it's a place for peace. It's a place to feel safe. It's a place to feel loved. And really, like, that's what we're trying to build in our own home, in our own spaces. And, when we have friends over, to be able to host and to be able to kind of provide that sort of, like, I don't know, that kind of like love and friendship.
What's the first thing you all notice when you walk into someone's home?
I think it's just an overall vibe that you get when you walk into a space, right? I think when we were doing this book, we visited over 20 different creatives, and each of these spaces were totally different, right? From a 1-bedroom apartment to, a cabin in the woods and different studios. So we saw it all. And I think that, whenever we would go into a space, I would kind of I would try to be observant of everything. Like, how does it smell? Like, what music are they playing? How are they decorating the space? How are they using it? Because, your home or your space is kind of a hybrid space for a lot of people. It's not just home. So many creatives that we interviewed for this book, like, they have a garage studio where they're making ceramics and getting dirty and, are able to then walk up a flight of stairs and then be in their home. So things are just kind of like, they're all meshed together, work and life and home and studio. And I think that the overall vibe are those things. It's like, it's all those senses. It's like what you hear, what you smell, what you see, I think is kind of what I sort of naturally take in whenever I step into someone's house, right?
Yeah. It's like, what's the experience?
What's the experience,
Yeah.
And we took that same kind of like idea even into the stores that we created for Poketo. It's like, how do we want people to feel? We have our office in the store, so we hear our customers come in. And when our customers come in, we hear this, or like, it's so cute, and to me, like, it's like they're in this Poketo world. And they are automatically, as soon as they enter, they get this feeling of like, oh my God, there's something that is making me happy, or something is super cute, or like, I often hear things like, oh my God, it smells so good in here. So it's those types of things that I think when you think about everything that kind of creates the experience, it's everything. It's all those things.
And so, Angie, then I'm curious, what would you, for someone who's saying, I want to ask myself a question to help myself redesign a space so I don't have a blank slate, I'm not starting with nothing, what's a question they could ask themselves to create a space that feels more like them?
I think one, you kind of need to look at what you're using your space for. Is it going to be a combo of your office and your home, or is it just going to be home, or is it just the office? Your intention is like the most important way. And then you can make adjustments along the way.
I love that.
Yeah.
And also accepting and remembering that it's always a work in progress.
Yeah.
I think that it's daunting to think that you're designing something that has a finality to it, right? I think that's where it's daunting. It's like, it's got to be perfect, so I have to find the perfect thing. And, it kind of like stops you from being curious and exploring, is when you think like it's got to be perfect. And I think that's the thing. It's always changing. It's always a work in progress, and never being afraid of letting things kind of grow naturally and change naturally.
Evolve. Yeah. I would love to have you all answer these 3 statements. And Angie, I'll start with you. And so the first statement is, better humans are.
Always learning and never stopping.
And Ted, better work is.
Better work is finding balance between work and life.
And then I'll have you both answer this one. A better world has.
Being empathetic of different people and different situations, and really just kind of going with the flow and doing the best you can.
Better humans.
Love that. It's a first. Well, and I appreciate both of you all for doing the work you're doing. And the thing that stood out to me most, which I mentioned, is the accessibility. So thank you for doing that work.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much.
That was Angie Myung and Ted Vatican, founders of Poketo and co-authors of Creative Spaces. Side note, aren't you always curious to see where that couple with the cool outfits or the fabulous woman walking down the street lives? I figure if that's the way they're walking around the world, what must their house look like? So I am keeping my fingers crossed for an invite to a cool house soon. If you have one, let me know. If you're thinking about your space differently after this conversation, share this episode with someone you care about. And make sure to leave us a rating before you go. It helps other people like you find this show and grow with our community. And even more helpful, write a 1-sentence review telling me what changed about your thoughts on the place that you call home. And you can always find me on LinkedIn writing about human potential and meaningful living. In the Arena is a production of LinkedIn News. The show is produced by Michelle O'Brien. Joe DeGiorgi mixed our show. Florencia Iriando is head of original audio and video. Dave Pond is head of news production. Dan Roth is the editor-in-chief of LinkedIn. And I'm Leah Smart. Thanks for coming on the journey with me, and I will see you next week.